Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and you are watching Glenda's Dragon's Den on the Glenda's Magical Creation channel on the Conscious Awakening Network. Whew. Okay, now that I said that, wanted to let you know that LD is on a healing mission, so he won't join us tonight. I know a lot of people are saying "Yay!" but that's not nice. Uh, he'll join us next week. Tonight we have a wonderful, phenomenal author, and who has written a few books, very profound, very informational books. And I'm just going to let her tell the, you all about herself and her books. Welcome, Constant Victoria. I always call you Victoria. I don't know why. I tend to go with that middle name.
Oh, that's okay. A lot of people do that. It's perfectly fine.
Still,
Hello.
Constance Victoria Briggs. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. And what good energy, that music, whatever that is you were playing. Oh my God. I
Isn't
love
it? It
that.
just sets the mood.
And that blue behind you. I love it.
Thank you. So, how are you today?
Doing good. I was looking forward to coming on your show today and, thinking about what we were going to discuss and, that kind of thing. I'm
The
doing
normal
okay.
stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, tell the audience about you.
So, as Glenda said, I am an author. I've written a few books, like she said. Gosh, where do I begin? I started off in this whole writing thing that I had a great passion for, but I wanted to write about things that I loved and held a interest, like a lot of writers. So I started off writing about spiritual things, and then I ended up with the cosmic. Right now, I'm working on cosmic stuff. So my first book was the Encyclopedia of Angels.
Mm-hmm.
And the Encyclopedia of Angels was an A to Z volume of
Right.
angels, their names, pretty simple to read. You look up an angel and, you find out what their job is, what their name is, how they can help you in life. People use that book in their readings. And, I felt like at that time in my life, I had well, I still do have a strong connection to the angels
Mm-hmm.
because they helped me out of a pretty sticky situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted other people to be able to know and to learn what I did. So basically, what had happened way back then, Glenda, since you said to talk, ba- basically, what happened back then is, it's really weird when you move into some areas. There's more kind of more paranormal activity than others for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reasons, and a
Yeah.
lot of times I didn't know it. I mean, I was very young then, but a lot of times it happens in apartment buildings.
Mm.
And I think it's because there's people going and coming,
Right.
in those situations and moving in and out. And they're, sometimes people coming right along with them, maybe, or whatever, or maybe they have something, near them and they get a wind of you. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it was a negative entity
Right.
in my apartment and it was bothering me. So I decided to do some research. And at this time, I knew nothing about any of this.
Right.
Um, I started out going to, like a minister and said, can you help me? There's something in my apartment. I don't know what to do. And he really couldn't. He wanted to convert me. And
Yeah.
seriously, he wanted to convert me. And then I went to my aunt and she was like, "Are you sure it's not a protector?" Well, no, it wasn't a protector. So on my own, I went to the bookstore and I started looking up angels.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere along the line, I guess I saw something about an angel. I started looking up angels. I found, and you might know this book, Sophie Burnham's A Book of Angels.
Ooh, yes.
Very famous, very wonderful. I've got two copies. I've had them for so many years. And I tell you, from her book, and there was another lady at the time named, I think it was Terry Williamson, who wrote, I think she wrote Ask Your Angels. I
Mm-hmm.
learned a great deal from these ladies about angels, and I learned to call on them.
Mm-hmm.
I got my angel's name.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to have a shelf or a little altar or whatever your word is for it, where I had all of the archangels
Mm-hmm.
to call on them. And guess what happened? Went away,
Yeah. Yeah.
went away,
Mm-hmm.
never came back. And that had gone on for some time. And so I learned to work with the angels. So I started collecting information on them. I thought someone else could benefit from knowing angel names
Mm-hmm.
because if you just say the word, if you have a strong belief and you can't just say the word thinking, yeah, I mean, you've got to have a really strong belief that they're
Exactly.
there, to just, not to help you buy shoes or something, um, you know. But anyway, so that's how I wrote the angel book. But things became, more and more interesting in my life as time went on in my metaphysical activities, which I delved into
Right.
once I learned about the angels. Okay, so my next book was the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I I wrote this book because by that time, with all of that research I had done on angels, I had learned a lot about a lot of other areas too, and
Mm-hmm.
I was, rolling right along with my metaphysical experiences and my gaining more knowledge. My father passed away, and I knew at this point I knew enough about life after death from my research and studies that he wasn't gone.
Right.
It really, really is life after life.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I kind of was looking for him to turn up at some point because I was that far along. This was many years later since the angel experiences. So sure enough, he did. He turned up, and he used to. When he passed away, he was doing things to let me know he was there.
Good.
He what? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to talk. So
That must have been very powerful.
it was powerful and it was validating and um and good. Thank goodness my husband was around when these things were occurring because he was not really a
Mhm.
believer, but he's such a believer now because of my dad and my mom who has passed since.
Right.
After that, but that's even another story. But so anyway, my dad, I live in California, and anybody who's out here, if you've been out here for many years, you know that oh gosh, I don't know, I want to say 15 years, something like that, I don't know, where we had a power outage and we had to keep all the lights off.
Right.
All right, so that we could only like turn on one at a time to keep the grid down.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go in a room and turn off the light and come back and the light was on. All right.
Mm.
And I think the first experience I didn't get it because I had a toddler who was keeping me busy. So what happened is I was working on another book, which I forgot to mention. I'll go back to it, the Encyclopedia of God. I was writing the Encyclopedia of God at the time, and my computer was doing these wild things while I was typing, and I didn't understand. I was very upset because I was on deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And it occurred to me later, I just gave up. I took my baby downstairs to read a book. I went to the living room to turn on the light, and then I went back to the family room. When I got to the family room, that living room light shut off, and it was a weird shut off. You know how you turn on a light
Mm-hmm.
and it blows because it's
Mm-hmm.
done? That's not what happened. I turned on the light and I left, and then it was like boom, and I was like, oh, that's weird. So I went in there and I tried to turn the light on because I had a feeling.
Right.
I had a feeling that light wouldn't come on, and it was plugged in behind my couch. I did everything, and then I looked behind my couch, and the plug was pulled out of the outlet, out of the wall.
Oof.
Right.
Oof.
And then I knew because that's what it took for me
Right.
being so dense to plug it out. to unplug the thing. So from that time on, he would turn on the lights and turn on the stereo and do all kinds of things. And until finally, I called this his MO. He would change at that time we were using the digital clocks. It was before cell phones.
Mhm.
And he would change the digital clock on my VCR when something was going on. And my husband would be like, "Oh, can you tell your dad to turn it, to change it back? It's hard to get in there and change it." But he would. And so when my sister was passing away,
Mm,
I woke up one morning and she's on the East Coast, I'm on the West, and that clock was turned to her time.
mm,
And then, therefore, after it would just spin like it was spin, the time
mm.
was spinning until she passed away. And I
Wow.
knew that was him.
Wow. He was telling
So
you she was going.
she
Uh,
was going and she was okay because it stopped when she went. So
right.
I just want to say that I wrote this book, The Encyclopedia of the Unseen World, and I dedicated it to my father, who validated what I had been learning. But this
Mhm.
book, I wanted for people to be able to go to some kind of little book and look up, it's A to Z as well, look up angels, look up the light,
Right.
look up life after death. Look up afterlife communication. What
Mm,
happens when your loved one crosses over and they're trying to reach you? Well, I tell you, obviously, one of the biggest ways is through electronics. So I wrote that book with all of these, different topics for people so they didn't have to read, 30 books before they got the information they wanted. So that was that book.
mhm. So I'm going to put up the Amazon author page, and they could find you there, and they know directly to find all these books, that wonderful books that you're talking about. Because I've been kind of, I downloaded one or two already, and I've been reading them. They're beautiful. They're
Oh,
beautiful.
thank you. Thank you so much.
So these experiences now have come into your life, and
Mm,
how do you think that has changed your life, your life path?
yeah.
Yeah.
The experiences came in. My mother passed away in 2019, and she was here just recently doing kind of the same stuff. And I tell you, it really helps to know that your loved ones are not gone.
Mm,
It's such a relief to know that they can hear you. And when I'm having a bad day, sometimes she'll turn something like the lights will go up and down, or
mhm,
something really, she's and my dad too, they've really got it down. But it changed my life path because number one, it helps me when to know that there really is no end, you
right.
know um and that we don't have a thing to worry about. People walk around every day and they're worried, they're scared all the time of this and that, and they think that death is the end. And I was watching, for example, a show on TV. My husband and I I like this one show that we're watching, and
Mhm,
um, every time should not, if they every time somebody does something wrong, they want to send them to jail or do away with them or
right.
something. And I'm like, they don't understand. If you do away with the person, you're doing them a favor
Yep.
because you're not killing them. They're crossing over. They're still alive. They think that death is the ultimate end and it's the worst thing that can happen. And no, not really.
No, you should then that all their suffering, all their whatever they got to go
Well,
through
if they're
here,
a bad guy, if you're a bad guy, not necessarily do you might be giving them an out. There's a lot of dimensions over there. I wonder sometimes if people can just go through another door and escape, on that side, you just never know. But
no.
anyway, that's my life. That helps me. There's no death. And, I follow people like, for example, Dolores Cannon,
Mhm,
who I loved. And, she would say that there's no death, and she would talk about her work. And she would say she wants to continue her work on the other
mhm,
side. And I
mhm,
find myself saying that too, because, getting older, and I think, oh, I wish I had more time because of course we've got our families, but I also want my work. I want to do more work. And I'm like, yeah, when I get over there, I just want to do more research and writing.
Yeah, there you go. So, your whole family is they believe, or they are some are still a little skeptic.
So my husband was a huge skeptic until he married me, and then when my dad started his communications from the other
Mhm,
side, he was very convinced. You know, there was one day when he was in the dark with my son, who was about 3, and they were wrestling around on the floor. And he's my husband's an engineer, and so he's always looking for engineer type things. Like there was a huge light on the ceiling,
right.
and he's like, "Honey, I can't find a source for this light. It's a big light on the ceiling. I think it's your father." So so and I think he's right. It was very strange.
Uh-huh.
It was during that time. So he's yeah, he's a believer. My daughter is 21, and not really does she talk much of it. It's like in one ear and out the other, even though she's had experiences. When she was younger, she used to see shadow people, and one time she saw a boy looking through our patio door. The door was open. He was peeping around. Well, there was no kids in our gated yard,
Mhm.
and she still, wondered what was that. And then she saw, oh my God, thought she saw Slenderman. For all of you with teenagers out that had teenagers out there, when they tell you they're seeing Slenderman, you've already told them don't watch that stuff. You may find out they just may be manifesting Slenderman. They
Yes.
don't even know it. I
Yeah.
believe she saw it. I
Mhm.
do. And I
Mhm.
believe there could have been either she got it wrong and it was something else. It could have been a manifestation because we're actually very powerful. And if
Mm.
we focus on certain things, they can materialize. I'm still killing not killing. I didn't kill the spider. I am still putting black spiders out because I have a phobia.
Yes.
So yeah, so I looked down the other day. The one person you don't want a spider on is me, and I looked down and there is a black spider about this big on my
Oh,
arm.
oh,
Really, really,
oh.
and I swear, I don't know. I was like, I'm drawing them in or something. I'm like, okay, what do you think about butterflies? We're powerful spiritual beings. Okay, butterflies,
Butterflies.
butterflies.
Yes, I understand that. I, I'm not crazy about snakes, but I'm the one who sees all the snakes,
Uh-huh.
right? Everywhere. Garden
Mhm.
snakes, everything. I'm like, I just don't like them. And so one day I saw the snake going into one of my houses a long time ago, and I just say, okay, it's time to burn the building down.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, people don't believe these things. That's right. You're going to see them because you've got them on the brain. You know,
Right.
the
Right.
same thing recently happened to my in-laws, who it's my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and her husband and my nephew. 3 of them have snake phobias. Well, guess what? They were pulling snakes out of their yard all summer. We're running
Oh,
over there because they're finding all these snakes. I'm
oh.
not kidding you. The worst people in the world to find them.
I would. That would it. That would.
I
I'm
think it's
out.
because they were focusing. Really, I do.
Yes, but it is true. What we focus on, we bring, whether it's good or bad, right?
Yeah.
We are great manifestators. We really are.
Yeah, be careful with your thoughts.
Exactly. Exactly. So that brought you to the book about God,
Well,
correct?
I actually wrote the God book after the Angel book. I actually, when I was a young teenager, I was always feeling some sort of metaphysical, I didn't know the word at the time, but spiritual pull
Spiritual.
towards something.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, of course, growing up in Christianity, I thought it was Christian thing, and that was it. I just had a love for God. That's what I
Mhm,
called it.
mhm,
And so as I got older and I got away from it, and I wrote about the angels, and I was thinking, you know what? Let me just look and see what other people are talking about when it comes to God. So I wrote this A to Z volume,
mhm.
the Encyclopedia of God, to kind of glean what other religions and cultures and beliefs were about God, and see if there were any similarities
Right, right.
there. So that's really what that was about. You can go in there and look up, the different religions and see who God is or what their take on God
Mm,
is, which
mm.
is actually nowhere near what my take on God is today. That was a long time ago. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't preachy or anything. It was an encyclopedia, uh, pretty much encyclopedia of religion, kind of, but I called it the Encyclopedia of God. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Um,
And so that brought you to
Ooh, it's a long journey here, and I'm cutting out a lot of information, guys. But
well, you already spoke about a little bit about the unseen world,
hmm
right?
yeah.
And that brought you to the moon's galactic history?
It actually brings me up to the Moon Mysteries book, and then the Moon's Galactic History.
Okay.
So, okay, so what happens, guys? It's when you've got your hand on this kind of research all the time. Um, Interesting information comes past your desk. And I should just backtrack here for a second and say that I've always been a Star Trek fan. My whole life, I have believed that we're not alone in the universe. It wasn't even a question in my mind as
Right,
to whether there were extraterrestrials about out there. I knew they were.
right.
I just was drawn to the cosmos. And so I actually was, looking at some point for, I was like, I'm not interested in the extraterrestrial or the aliens at that time that are driving the ships, the UFOs. I'm not interested in UFOs. I'm looking for benevolent extraterrestrials, beings of light.
Mhm,
That's kind of where I started hearing about more beings of light that were not in the angelic realms, but others that were out there that were trying to benefit humanity and others in the galaxy. I was looking for them. I
mhm,
was looking for information on them. So what happened is I got all of that information, and one day I will turn that into a book because I love and adore benevolent beings, and especially benevolent extraterrestrials. I just want a side note: all we see are the grays. I don't understand it because all extraterrestrials are not gray
no,
and they're not green and they
mm-mm,
don't look like that. Now, I know there are some pictures of extraterrestrials out there that are not, but these are everywhere.
mm-mm,
So, unfortunately, when people think of them, that's what they're thinking, but that's not how it is, guys.
mhm,
So, anyway, I was looking up angels and benevolent beings, and there was these stories that I kept coming across about the moon. And this the moon thing, people, I can just tell you, lovely audience, it has taken up my life for the last almost 3 years now. It's almost all that I talk about. Um, so I never thought there was anything strange about our moon. Like most people, I thought the moon is it's a dead rock in the sky. There's nothing to it. There's nothing happening up there. Oh boy, my goodness, was I wrong. So there's a lot going on with the moon. And so I came across a little book by a ufologist by the name of Dawn Wilson, who wrote a book called Our Mysterious Spaceship Moon. He also wrote Secrets of Our Spaceship Moon.
mhm,
And I just thought, oh my goodness, it was just a little book like this, but it was so interesting. And he talked about there being anomalies on the moon. I'm like, what? If there's no one up there to do anything. Okay. So long story short, I started collecting stories. I went off of his book and started looking up information and tidbits that he had given in places, and I just threw stories into a file. And I learned that there are structures on the moon. There are strange lights moving about the moon, and there's lighted domes on the moon. And these days, with all the cameras around, we're seeing what looks like, UFOs or ships
Mhm.
coming and going out of the moon. Now, so with the Moon Mysteries book, I wanted people to be able to go in and do their own research in this
Right.
area. You can go into that book and look up. I know some people don't believe we went to the moon, but I do, so I talk about them. You can look up the Apollo astronauts, for example. For
Right.
example, every Apollo mission was followed to the moon by a UFO. They all encountered something up there.
Mhm.
And most people do not know that because the people who were around when this was happening are gone. Okay. They've passed away. I think there's just a couple of the astronauts, two astronauts left, I think, out of the 12 that actually walked on the moon. And
Mhm.
even the ones who didn't walk on the moon, they're important too, that were in the capsule. But so people don't know this because they weren't around back then. And the people that were around can tell you stories. So
Mhm.
that's kind of, I mean, like I'll see some guest comment sometimes, and I was saying one day how Apollo 17 astronauts had it was the last moon mission, and they were in their little I call it the dune buggy. It's really the lunar rover,
Right.
and right, so they're driving along in this little car, and Walter Cronkite. Only we, older people here are going to know
Mhm.
who Walter Cronkite is. I
Right.
know the 20 somethings listening are like, huh? But anywho, he was he was the big news commentator back then, and so all of the Apollo missions were live, and so he was commenting on what was happening, and then he saw what appeared to be a structure, and he said it something to the effect of, "Oh, that looks like a structure."
Mhm.
And when he did, the feed from the astronauts to the Earth was cut.
Mhm.
They were off. They were off air for 20 minutes.
Mhm.
And when they came back, and that's a long time. And
Yes.
when they came back, Cronkite was laughing, and he said, "Oh, it appears that the lunar rover accidentally took a picture of itself." I don't know how that would have happened.
Right. Right.
Maybe they hit a switch and they're saying, "Oh, whatever happened on the camera." But there was a commenter, a lady in the audience, who said, "Oh, my mother used to always talk about when she saw a building on the moon. They were watching the space missions, and she saw a building on the moon." Isn't that
Mhm.
something? Isn't that
That is
something?
something. That is something. We get told so many discrepancies. We don't get told tell nobody tells the truth. And I don't understand why. I think we're ready. I think we're all ready to just realize, truly realize that we're not the only ones here or anywhere else. So,
I think we're ready. I think a lot of people are ready, and then you're going to find some that are not. It's interesting. I'm working on a book, and I'm trying to wrap it up now. And I literally was talking about this in my book today. How there will be some people, excuse me, the Earth galactic history and its extraterrestrial connection. That's why I was writing on the subject, and I was saying, okay, well, some people are going to be ready, and some aren't, but for the most part, we are.
mm-hmm,
And but people are saying, it's a cover up. Some researchers saying it's a cover up. They're out there. Why don't they let us know? But I'm kind of under the impression that we're really not in charge. I don't think it's everything's about the government covering things up. I think some of it is coming from extraterrestrials who are waiting for us to be completely ready
right.
before they introduce themselves to the masses. There
Mm-hmm,
are tons of stories of people that have spoken to extraterrestrials through channeling. Some
Mm-hmm.
have had direct
Mm-hmm.
contactees, but for the most part, the masses of Earth have not met them. But people are learning more and more that we're not alone in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there are galactic councils out there that are in charge of this stuff, and they will
Mm-hmm.
let us know when we're ready. One of the ways I think that they're educating people is through our media and things like, for example, Star Trek and
Mm-hmm.
those shows. I think that because of these kinds of shows, people now have more open mind to
Right.
the idea.
Right. Well, I do channel a couple of councils, by the way.
Oh, good. Wow.
Yes, weekly, and I am an experiencer, so I do know.
I did not
I
know that.
I did have direct contact, and many times, and I'm well aware that they're not just gray or
Oh,
green.
yeah, well, good.
It's like, but I understand, uh, and it's okay that those people who are saying only what gray and green, they're just not ready for more. So, and when they experience it, they will be ready. So, so the moon. Tell us more about that because
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued. Very.
So, so I kind of felt like when I wrote the Moon's Galactic History, guys,
Mhm.
you can see it there, I guess, at Amazon. Anyway, I have it here.
Yeah.
Isn't that a
Oh,
great
there it
picture?
is.
Isn't that a
Perfect.
great picture? I love that
Oh,
picture. I
yeah.
love anything Moon City like. That is one of those domes I had mentioned earlier, lighted domes.
Mhm.
Astronauts have
I'll put the
seen
information back up so they could go find you.
uh, astronauts have seen a number of things up there, including lighted domes that are, covering like a crater area where they can see some kind of energy underneath,
Mhm.
which leads to the theory that there is someone there using energy on the moon or inside of the moon. But when I wrote this book, I felt like I was telling the moon's story. I felt
Mm.
like someone needed to tell the story because it really is so interesting. So I'm the moon spokesperson. Uh,
Okay.
I started the story with there being a time when there was no moon in the sky. And a lot of people, if you're a follower of the cosmic and the UFOs and stuff, you've heard it. And but a lot of people haven't heard that before. There are ancient people, ancient writers, historians, philosophers
Mhm.
who talked about in snippets. They mentioned there was no moon in the sky. And one of them went into a little bit more detail. I believe that was Ovid, Ovid, a philosopher from Greece, who basically said that before the moon appeared in the sky, uh, um, there were people running wild in the earth,
Mm.
and their names were the Arcadians. And someone else had said at that time that Venus was the brightest item in the night sky. But anyway, these people, he gave a description. He says, they ran, unclothed through, and were just feral people
Mhm.
before the moon came. So those are just two people. Aristotle talked about it. And that I found was very shocking
Mhm.
when I first heard it. So moving forward a little bit, excuse me, I need to get some water.
Yes, me too.
Excuse me.
So there you go.
Mm. Um, Moving forward a little bit in history, there is a sun gate out of Bolivia
Mhm.
that is an ancient structure. It is a doorway or a gateway from a building that was standing.
Mhm.
This thing is still standing. It is in an area that was used for astronomy purposes. And on this gateway are symbols that talk about the moon being brought in, or the moon coming in, rather.
Hmm.
It says that the moon came in, and in the thing when it arrived, there was a lot of disasters on
Hmm.
the Earth because of the gravity of the
Right.
moon. The gravity pull, the mass of the moon. And once things settled, that uh, Earth had the whole everything had changed. The amount of times, the length of days, and all of this. So my point is, we're going from historians that say there was no moon in the sky to someone saying the thing came in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not only that, but there was a tribe out of South Africa that has a story when it comes to the moon and how the moon got here.
Ooh.
Basically, they said that the moon was hollowed out, basically a hollowed out planetoid, it sounded like, because they called it an egg. And they said it was hollowed out and it was sent across the universe and placed in Earth's vicinity.
Wow.
That's what this ancient legend says. And
Hmm.
I feel like it ties all into
Hmm.
there being a time with no moon in the sky. So here you've got these ancient people with the same story,
Mm-hmm.
and it's out of South Africa, and more than likely, they heard it from extraterrestrials because a number of tribes and people from the ancient world had contact with extraterrestrials that came in and told them our cosmic history.
Right.
And that was what the way they interpreted this thing. Now, what's also interesting is in 1979, two Russian gentlemen, they were um, scientists that worked for the Soviet Union,
Mm-hmm.
and they said that they had a theory of how the moon, about the moon, and they put their reputations on the line to come forth with this theory. You know, because people were going to call them crazy probably, and they didn't want to get in trouble with the government, but they just felt like they had to put it out there.
Right.
So these guys, astronomers, said from what they learned from the Apollo astronauts, they looked at the fact that the materials that were brought back were made of metals and elements that were so strong that it looked like something that would have only been used to build a spaceship.
Wow.
And there were some of, those things can not be found in mass amounts on Earth, but they were on the moon
Hmm.
when in the makeup of some of the things that they pull off of there. They found this, and they also tried to drill into the moon, and they couldn't. And the scientists noted that when a meteorite hits the moon, that all of the craters are around the same depth.
Hmm.
They're all around 2.5 miles. No matter how hard something smacks the surface of the moon, it doesn't dent it any more than that. And they said that it looked to them from their studies that the thing is not real. Oh, they looked at the fact that the moon rang like a bell. All right. Now
Hmm.
the moon didn't really ring like a bell, ding ding ding. No, it reverberated, it shook
Right.
when the astronauts crashed their ascent, uh, a part of their spacecraft into the moon.
Right.
The moon ran. I'm losing my words. Excuse me. Oh, pardon me.
So interesting. Really is interesting. Go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry.
Hmm.
So, where was I? Oh, okay. So they looked at the fact that it rang like a bell too. So they said it's hollow. These scientists said that it's hollow. Possibly they looked at all that stuff and said they think something is in there. Someone is in there. They said they think there are engines inside of there,
Mm-hmm.
supplies inside of there, and everything someone would need for a long trip across the universe, all
Hmm.
right, to survive, all
Hmm.
right? So that's the hollow moon theory. And I tell you, more and more scientists are on board of this theory now because nobody knows how the moon came to be. People, when you hear them say that the moon was captured or in Earth's gravity, or if you hear that the big whack theory, where they said that a planet smacked into the Earth, and when it hit the Earth, the Earth's element flew into space, and that formed the moon. Well, that was a theory, and NASA says we think that's on their website. They kind of say that we think that's how it happened, but they can't prove it. They don't really know it. Nothing definitive. So more and more people are jumping aboard on this artificial moon thought, because the thing seems to be some sort of mega structure. So not only that, but I wanted to say that the what the scientists were saying was pretty much the same story that the tribe, the Zulu people in South Africa gave about that egg being hollowed out and
Mm,
coming across the universe. I thought that was very, very interesting.
very interesting how in different places, different
Hmm.
people, different times are saying the exact same thing, basically. I find that not only fascinating, but it kind of adds to the validity
It
of
does.
their ancient beliefs, because now the scientists are saying, oh,
Hmm.
uh, then all the stories, like I said, all the truth that we sometimes don't hear about. And it has nothing to do with the government. I'm just saying it in general that could be some leader decided not to let that information out, and that information stays with them and it just continues to.
Yeah, I think it's just. I think in this case with the moon stuff, a lot of it got lost.
Right.
The people around today weren't back there.
No, no.
They don't know. And I tell you, no offense to NASA, but I've done the research on them, and they weren't very organized back then either. I mean, they didn't have the computers like we did. That's their paperwork were going in cardboard boxes. They got
Right.
a whole building down there of shelves of cardboard boxes with files that I bet you no one's opened since the 60s. Really? And people are saying, "Oh, okay, well, they said that they don't know how to get back up there. They don't know how." I bet they don't. They don't even know where the information is. They're better now. I'm sure they're using all the state of the art things now.
Right.
And somebody went back and scanned all that stuff. I guarantee. They
Yeah, I could see that. Oof. Well, in those
So
times there wasn't real computers, right?
no.
It was the beginning of all that electronics and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and not what it is now. Absolutely
No.
not. So, and to find something, you would have to gone through boxes and boxes and
That's
boxes.
right. It is
Most
true.
people would have just like, yeah, let's just store this away. Let's start
Hmm.
fresh at some point.
Hmm. I mean, it sounds terrible, but I think it's a thing. I really do. I have this little speaker phone contraption on my
Hmm.
house that at my front gate you're supposed to be able to talk to people
Hmm.
when they ring. Guess what? It hasn't worked since I moved in here 11 years ago. Why? There's no one who knows how to make the parts around anymore. So I really think that that is a thing, honestly.
Yeah.
But I want to say that I do believe that there is
Hmm.
someone up there. I do believe that there are extraterrestrials on the moon. And as crazy as that sounds, I don't know if I could have said that a few years back because it would have sounded so crazy. But when you've done the information and you've got authoritative people out of, that have come forward, like there are some of the astronauts who said, we saw stuff up there.
Hmm.
One of them, Gordon Cooper, wrote a letter to the UN saying, we need to look into extraterrestrials. They're around. They're on the moon. They're everywhere. I've seen them. I saw a ship land. He said.
Right.
So it's no longer. I don't. I just think it's more important than people really understand. So the telling the moon story. If you go to, look, I got a glass at the time. If you go back to the time that the telescope was created,
Right.
astronomers from that time forward have been seeing lights and things. Of course,
Hmm.
back then they didn't know anything about UFOs or spaceships.
Right.
They said they would see a star-like light moving across the moon, or they would see stars together moving across the moon or
Mhm.
leaving the moon. They could see them during the lunar eclipse. We saw these stars during the lunar eclipse. They saw them in all kinds of colors, geometric shapes in the craters, on edges of the craters. One of them talked about seeing what he thought was some sort of animal, like a herd of animals or something going across the surface, moving at 8 miles an hour.
Mhm.
All right. I mean, these people kept records from way back then up until the 1960s. And I've actually got this book I like to show people when I come on. This is the NASA Lunar Technical Report, and
Okay.
it talks about all these older astronomers because the British Astronomical Society was keeping track. These astronomers would report, and so they would get they had their name, the date, I don't know, 1701 or something, and this Schroeder saw this, and it was white, and it was on this crater, and it lasted 2 hours, or it was flying. I mean, they've got all this stuff in here, and it used to be classified. They declassified it, and
Okay.
so it was even considered then a scientific fact in the old days that there was someone on the moon because they were seeing all kinds of stuff, and they said that they believed there were people up there. That was the fact. But then in our modern time, our scientists came along and said, nobody can live on the moon. It's too hot. It's too cold. Nobody can be up there. But they never said who's doing all of that.
Right. Right. Mhm.
So
It's amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing. So that's a wonderful book, and I really can't wait to actually start reading it. I picked it up on Amazon, so
oh, you did.
yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's the moon's galactic history.
Yes, yes.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I
Yeah.
hope you liked it.
I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will. Um, I just was on a UFO Paracon convention, so I didn't get a chance to really sit and read it. I was just like skimming over it quickly. I was like, "Oh,
Oh,
this is going to be awesome when I actually have the time to read it." So tell us, you were slightly telling us about the next book, and when do you
yeah.
expect that one to come out?
Um, gosh, I'm sure it'll be out by Christmas. I'm actually working to turn it in Monday, and it takes a month and a half to get that thing out there after you turn it in or something like that. So,
Right.
the Earth's galactic history and its extraterrestrial connection. So basically, and I just want to say, pardon me, the Moon's galactic history is not an A to Z volume. It's not an A to Z. It's a narrative. I think that's a better read than the other ones. The other ones are good for research, um, but and so is this new one is a narrative, and I wanted to trace Earth's history with extraterrestrials and any connection that humanity has with extraterrestrials because it appears that we've been getting visitation since the beginning of history
Mhm.
from beings from other worlds. This is not a new phenomena. So there's a lot of people out there who are just now hearing about what they've retitled to UAPs
Mhm.
from UFOs. This is all news to them. They're like, oh my gosh, we're being visited or they're seeing things out there. Oh my goodness, there's a congressional hearing. Well, I'm here to tell you that they've been there forever. Okay. And I don't believe that it's just one group.
No.
So in my book, I'm talking about different groups. I'm talking about the different types of ships people have seen. I'm going back to ancient times and putting some of the experiences
Mhm,
that people had with extraterrestrials all the way up to today. I
mhm,
have to tell you, some of the stuff is really interesting. I don't want to give it all away, but oh gosh, I'm going to forget the guy's name. Hamilton. I'll just give you a little tidbit.
mhm,
Hamilton saw a UFO.
mm.
Hamilton saw a UFO. I mean Hamilton,
Ooh, okay,
the
I can't
musical
wait.
Hamilton. He saw a UFO, and he saw the UFO take his cow away.
Mm.
I'm not kidding. It's
Well,
documented,
I can't wait to
right?
get that.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. And there's some messages from extraterrestrials in there that
Mhm.
might blow you away. Um, and I'm just going to give you another little tidbit because they're just too much fun
Yes.
to not say. So Charlemagne,
Uh-huh.
the King of France, Charlemagne.
Mhm.
Am I saying that right? Charlemagne? I think so.
Think so.
All right. So what was that date? I don't know. I don't even know the name, the date. The Middle Ages, I guess. Anyway, France France was being so plagued by UFOs, so many UFO sightings that it got on the king's nerves. All right, and he created a proclamation saying that they could no longer come. He had an edict. They cannot come anymore.
I'm the king.
Oh my God.
That's the thing. It's like, and we're here saying, "Are you kidding me? You're actually thinking you're going to order them not to come?"
Yeah, I mean, he was really ticked.
Uh,
But seriously speaking, there
mhm.
have been, sightings and encounters since the beginning of our history,
Yes.
and it is really something to think about. Why is it that this is happening? Why was it happening? Did they have something to do with our being here?
Mhm.
Is the Earth owned by extraterrestrials? Is there someone in charge? We think that we own Earth. We think that we own the moon.
Mhm.
But I kind of feel like, for example, for the moon, if someone's up there, then the moon doesn't belong to us. It may be its own country with its own laws and rules and all kinds of things. And who knows, what's going on out there in the universe.
Right.
We really are in a galactic community. And there are advanced extraterrestrials because obviously they are if they're flying ships. If anyone watched those hearings,
Uh-huh.
uh, the congressional hearings, they were telling you how fast these things go and how they can turn, and there's just nothing like them in the world. So
Right.
they're obviously advanced. If they have that kind of advancement, I would think they would have some sort of hierarchy and order. And we just may be a part of someone's real estate.
Right.
Weird as that sounds. Yep.
Oh dear Lord. So usually it's blowing people's mind. Poof. Because
You never know. You never know.
yeah,
Okay. So
exactly. Exactly.
So,
It's
did
just-
you hear about the story about 2 or 3 years ago? The man's name is, I think, Haim Eshed, and I think it's Haimeshed, I believe. He was an Israeli man who wrote a book. It was
Mhm.
on the news, and he was a brigadier general, the equivalent of a brigadier general, and a whole host of other uh, titles. And he's an older gentleman, and he had a resume the length of my arm of all of the wonderful jobs he's had and things he's done, and very respected and very rich in all of this. So he wrote a
Right.
book, right, about his time working for the Defense Department, and he was working with aeronautics or something. And he said, we have people on the moon. Excuse me, we have people on Mars, not the moon. We have people on Mars, and they're working with extraterrestrials. I'm beginning to forget where I was going with this, but they're working with extraterrestrials. Oh, yeah, I know where it's going. And that the extraterrestrials there said, do not tell the people of Earth because they're not ready.
Mhm.
All right, and they named them as the Galactic Federation. I was saying this on another show. I was watching TV, and I mean I was cooking and the news was on, and I spun around when I heard the words Galactic Federation. I was like, oh my God, they outed the Galactic Federation. Well, my family, who I talked about, being all over the whole parent ghost and
Right.
afterlife, and they're not so much as knowledgeable about this, so they didn't know what I was talking about. But I just wanted to say the fact that this man, I believe him, by the way, and the fact that he said that the extraterrestrials said not to tell us, I
Mm-hmm.
believe that. They said
Mm-hmm.
we're not ready, all right?
Very.
And if they said it, then there must be some sort of hierarchy that are
Mm-hmm.
making these rules, and
Mm-hmm.
that it may be them who are calling the shots for a
Yeah.
lot of things that come to Earth, about by way of Earth in us. So I don't know. Stay tuned. It
Well,
looks like
you know,
something's coming.
yeah, I think you got you. I think you may be onto something there. I truly believe. So we're less than 4 minutes away from ending the show. Is there any last minute tidbit that you want to tell the audience? I'm going to put up your website so they could find you
Yeah,
and
yeah.
get in touch with you if they have any questions or anything. I'm sure there's people also who have experiences or have some knowledge and may want to get in touch with you about it.
Well, feel free to send me an email. It's on my website. I am
Mhm.
also on Facebook. Now, I have two pages. One is a business page. You don't want that one, but I have Constance Victoria Briggs page. It has a big Saturn in the background. You can't miss that. Just look up Constance Victoria Briggs. I also have a Moon Mysteries page where I put up all kinds of interesting information and tidbits about mysteries on the moon.
Mhm.
I'm now on TikTok. TikTok.
TikTok.
You've got the Tic Tac ships and the TikTok. I do this all the time, but I'm on there now. I just got it up. I haven't started posting, but I will. And I'm
Mhm.
on Instagram now
Oh,
too. So yeah.
great, great. So everybody can find you. Well, I really want to thank you for being here with us. I do need you to just hang on and please, I do want you to come back.
Oh.
When you're finished that other book and it's all out,
Mm.
definitely come back and tell us more about it. Because now I'm like really like excited. Can't wait till it comes out.
Okay, we'll
So
make a whole show about that one.
there you go. Perfect.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
So I wanted to say thank you to our audience. And as always, we send blessings and we love you.